welcome to 5-Minute Family Law. Today's episode is about becoming a parent. Under the British Columbia Family Law Act, there are 3 ways that you can become a parent of a child. Through the old-fashioned way, insert tab A into slot B, follow the rest of the instructions. You can adopt a child, or you can have a child through assisted reproduction. The parents of a child are presumed to be the birth mother and the biological father. It's usually pretty easy to tell who the birth mother of a child is, and for much the same reasons, it's not always easy to tell who the biological father of a child is. And as a result, the Family Law Act, just like the Family Relations Act before it, has a list of the circumstances in which a man will be deemed to be the father of a child. Section 26 of the Family Law Act says that a man will be presumed to be the parent of a child if he was married to the child's birth mother on the day of the child's birth, if he marries the child's birth mother after the child's birth and acknowledges that he is the father, if he was living in a marriage-like relationship with the birth mother within 300 days before or on the day of the child's birth, or if he, along with the birth mother, has acknowledged that he is the child's father by signing a statement under the Vital Statistics Act. Now, those presumptions were really handy in the days before we had any reliable way of scientifically determining who the parents of a child were. Today, however, we have genetic testing, and as a result, the Family Law Act has a provision that allows someone to apply for an order that a DNA test be conducted. Now, when a DNA test is performed, it comes back with a degree of reliability that is on the order of 99.98%. And what that means is that if you've had a DNA test done and it shows that you're a father of a child, there's no point in arguing about it. You are the father of the child. If you decide to adopt a child, the adoption will happen under British Columbia's Adoption Act. Under the Adoption Act, there are essentially 2 kinds of adoption. One that goes through adoption agencies and the Ministry for Children and Family Development, and then the private adoption process. And the private adoption process includes relative adoptions, which are really quite straightforward, and direct placements by the birth parent with the adoptive parents. I won't talk about these processes in much detail now. I'll get to them in a future episode. But the really important thing about adoption is that the adoptive parent or parents, there can be either 1 or 2 adoptive parents, become the parents of a child for all purposes of the law of British Columbia once the adoption order is made. And just as the adoptive parents become the parents of the child for all purposes of the law, the biological parents lose that status for all purposes of the law. It is as if they have never been the parent of a child. And among other things, that means that they lose the right to apply to have parenting time or contact with the child. They lose any right to exercise parental responsibilities on behalf of the child, and they no longer have an obligation to pay child support with respect to the child. The 3rd way to become a parent is through assisted reproduction. People usually choose assisted reproduction because they're not in an opposite-sex relationship or not in a relationship at all, or they're in an opposite-sex relationship but are unable for some reason to conceive or carry the child through to term using natural reproduction. The basic idea of assisted reproduction is that 1 or 2 people, who the Act calls intended parents, need help in order to have a child. That help might take the form of the donation of eggs or sperm or even an embryo, or the use of a surrogate mother to carry the child through to term. Now, you'll remember just a few minutes ago that the parents of a child are presumed to be the birth mother of a child and the biological father of a child. For that reason, surrogate mothers are presumed to be a parent of the child, but the Act says that somebody whose only relationship with a child is through the donation of sperm or eggs to an intended parent, they are not presumed to be the parent of a child. Now, what makes the British Columbia Family Law Act so incredibly cool is that the intended parents can make an agreement with donors or surrogate mothers that, as long as the agreement is executed prior to conception, is capable of saying who the parents of a child are for all purposes of the law of British Columbia without having to get a court order. And so, using an agreement executed prior to conception, the intended parents can make an agreement that provides that somebody who donates sperm or an egg is a parent of the child. They can make an agreement that somebody who is a surrogate mother is not the parent of a child. And in fact, an agreement like this can provide that a child has as many as 6 legal parents, up to 2 intended parents, a donor of sperm, a donor of eggs, a surrogate mother, and the spouse of the surrogate mother. And so these agreements are terribly important. Just remember that a surrogate mother, as the birth mother, is presumed to be the parent of a child in the absence of an agreement. And in the absence of an agreement, somebody who is merely the donor of sperm or eggs is presumed not to be the parent of a child. And that is how you become a parent in British Columbia.